Hello and welcome. I'm Erin Cuthbert, footballer for Chelsea and the Scotland national team, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest on the show today. He made 152 appearances for the club, scoring 43 goals. He was part of the squad that won promotion to the First Division in 1977. Plus, he played alongside the likes of Ian Britton, Ray Wilkins, and Ron Chopper Harris. Here is Tommy Langley. Tommy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Yeah, good, Keith. Good form, thank you. Looking forward to Man United this week and hopefully 3 points on the board. But yeah, in good order.
Hopefully 3 points. Hopefully 3 points. We will touch on modern day Chelsea later on. But I did want to start off the interview, Tommy, by asking, go back in the time machine, really, and sort of cast your mind back to when it all began for you. And what was the moment when you realised that you wanted to become a professional footballer?
I think that's the dream, though, Keith, isn't it? It's the dream of all young boys that they play in the school playground, they play wherever they can, they kick a ball around or they kick a stone around. And, you know, since them days, you dream of pulling on what I dreamed of pulling on the blue shirt. And fortunately, I was able to do that. So, it was a long-term dream that obviously eventually came to reality.
And who were your idols growing up as well?
Ozzy. I mean, loved Oz, Ron Harris, obviously, because Ron was the stalwart of the club at that side. Alan Hudson, the sort of, you know, the Aussies and the Hutches. And I mean, I grew up when I left London in Basingstoke, and Peter Houseman lived in Basingstoke. So eventually was travelling in with him every day, one of my idols, and very much an unsung hero from that sort of era. So, there was a lot of them, but Ozzy was the king for me, and he was the one I really sort of wanted to be like and be around, you know.
Now, you came through the youth ranks at Chelsea and you made your debut when you was 16 years old. What was that like for you in that time period?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, look, I left school in the July and end up playing in the first team in November. I mean, if you'd have told me that when I left school in July, I'd have laughed you out of court. But it happened, and it happened for various reasons. Obviously, we had injuries up front. I mean, Hutch was injured, and Ozzy had already left then. But so there was a few injuries, and I think a few guys were out on loan. So basically, it was me or not me. So Eddie McCready called me up on the week before. We played Arsenal on the Wednesday night in John Hollins's testimonial, and Eddie said, "I'm going to give you a game, and if all goes well, you'll play Saturday." Obviously, the testimonial, whilst played at testimonial pace, I must have shown him that I was all right, because on the Saturday against Leicester, he said, "Right, you're in," and then it all kicked off.
And again, you made your debut against Leicester. How did this come about, obviously, for you on the day? So what was that day like for you?
I mean, people keep asking, was I nervous? I don't think I was. I think it was that sort of 16-year-old blasé, I'm going to go and do this and enjoy every minute, you know. I don't remember being nervous, but as I said, maybe I was. But the thing I do remember is I'd never really had a pre-match meal before, because I'd never really sort of been with the first team. And they took us to a hotel where we had a fillet steak the size of my fist, and a rice pudding to end. So when I get to Stamford Bridge, I felt like I'd never eaten a meal like that in my life, let alone before a match. So it felt a bit heavy and a bit weird. But look, I got through the game, and it didn't slow me down at all. But it amazed me that they was having a steak at sort of 12 o'clock and rice pudding as well. But those were the good old days.
The name Ron Stewart has not been a name that's been mentioned on the show quite a bit, but he was sort of in charge of team affairs also around about this time. What was he like with you?
Ron was great. I mean, obviously I dealt more with Eddie, because Ron was more of a sergeant major type, and Ron sort of was the guy that oversaw it all, and he was the gruff, harsh voice behind Eddie. So they were very much a team, and Eddie was the guy who put his arm around you as an ex-player, tell you how great you were, even if he didn't believe it. But he got you on the pitch in the right manner and the right frame of mind. So Ron was a good lad. I never had any issues with Ron at all. He took the warm up in training and then let Eddie get on with it. But he did a couple of sessions. But as I said, he was the old sergeant major type, which we had in them days. Not so much now, obviously. And Eddie was the guy that, as I said, was the more mediator around the players.
And you would score your first goal for Chelsea against Birmingham in what was only your second appearance. That must have given you a huge sort of confidence boost in your early days at Chelsea.
Yeah, obviously I made my debut November the 9th, and that was February the 8th, which is my birthday. So, it was a bit of a time. And obviously once you've put the shirt on and you've played in the first team, you're itching to get back in. And I'd been injured, and Eddie came to me on the Friday and said, "Look, how fit are you?" And I said, "Yeah," because I said I had this niggling injury. And I said, "No, I'm 100%. He said, "Great, I'm going to put you on the bench tomorrow." Obviously, he didn't know it was my birthday. And then obviously I think I came on, I'm not quite sure, 65th, something like that minute. And ball came into the box. I swung my right leg at it. Ended up in the middle of the net. So I was last seen running down King's Road celebrating. But no, it was magnificent. And obviously, again, first goal. I mean, I had a lot of people, a lot of family in the stands, and I understand they were all crying their eyes out because they're all Chelsea people. So it was emotional but great day.
Unfortunately, though, that season Chelsea did go down to the second division. And how difficult was it for the club during that period because of the insecure finances that there were at the time? And there was issues in terms of whether Chelsea did have the money to pay the players or pay for the stands as well, because there was some building work that was going on. There were some troubles on and off the pitch at the club at that time.
Yeah, there were, and obviously there's rumblings, but I think whilst we as I said, we were aware, we weren't oblivious to it. We were a group of young guys just wanted to play football. So I don't think that there was any concern with you're not going to get paid on Friday, you might get paid on Tuesday, because we was as much playing for the love as we were the pound note. And whilst the pound note become a part of it later on, at that stage we just wanted to play for the club and do our thing. So we was aware that the stand was obviously having to pay for, and certain people eventually had to be sold, which was sad, because it broke up what could have been a very good side in the likes of, I'm talking about Ray Wilkins, Gary Stanley, even Kenny Swain. A lot of people went missing from that era, that group of guys. And that was sad as well, because as I said, we'd grown up together. So, there was an awareness, but it didn't really make a difference to our performances. I just think it's a bit like, without touching on today, we're a very young side and a very sort of, we needed some extra help. And we, unfortunately, that year we weren't able to get that help in, and obviously I think, ironically, Spurs sent us down at White Hart Lane, and it was either me or Teddy Maybank that Eddie called, and he gave Ted the nod. Ted's a really good lad and a good player anyway. So, but unfortunately, we couldn't get the job done at White Hart Lane, and we went down.
Eddie McCready would then take over as the permanent manager for Chelsea. What kind of a character was he, for those that may not know who Eddie was?
It was great. I mean, listen, he was said being an ex-player helps, and understanding where the club had been and where it was. I think that also helps. So yeah, as a man manager, thought he was great. Training was fun. He'd organise a few social events as well, because he grew up in a very social era with Ozzy and Hutch going down the King's Road and Uddy and all that little mob. Again, so he wanted to keep that character in the team and in the squad. So we were a good social side, and obviously on the pitch, we just give everything we had, and at times it was good enough, other times it wasn't. But certainly when we were in Division, what was Division 2 then, obviously the Championship now, we were a good side, and I think there were a few in there, but we were certainly up there with them.
And a young Ray Wilkins was also captain of Chelsea at this time, and he was also coming through the ranks, being a young player as well. What was your relationship like with him?
Ray was brilliant. I mean, great lad. Grew up obviously a year older than me, but he's in the sort of Ray Lewington. They was alongside each other for most of their schoolboy career as well as their professional career. So grew up with them two guys. But Ray Wilkins was a superstar. I mean, I've had many conversations about people saying, they called him the crab because he kept going sideways. People forget when he played for Chelsea. I scored, I think, 15 goals in the year we got relegated. And Ray, he must have made sort of 13 of them. Because I'd like to make runs in behind people, and Ray's vision was unbelievable. I mean, he could put a ball on a tanner. He was that good. But people also forget that 1 year, and I'm not sure the exact stats, but he got over 20 goals from midfield. And it was only when he went to United that they asked him to play in a different way, that deeper role, passing the ball and keeping possession, and that he become less expansive. But my memory of Ray, not only was a fantastic man, but he was a fantastic footballer, and he could do it all. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. He could shoot from 25 yards top bin. He could pass 30, 40 yards over the top, but he could also keep the ball. And I think obviously that's why he eventually went to Italy, because they do tend to keep the ball and they love them deep line midfield players. So he went on to have a fantastic career. But the sad thing was, from our point of view, we lost not only a magnificent man, a great friend, and a fantastic footballer. So it sort of, it was sad when he had to go.
Talk to me about the promotional season of 76, 77. You didn't play many games, but in terms of the moments and the memories, you'd score the goal at Wolves to clinch promotion, and then you've got the game against Hull, whereby you can see on the highlights. I believe it's still on YouTube, or you can catch it on. I believe it's the big match on ITV4. McCready on the microphone telling the fans to stop getting on the pitch every time Chelsea would score, and obviously the police would get involved and everything. What sort of memories have you got of that particular era? Because Chelsea being in the second division and having that sort of pressure to go up to finally get the job done.
Yeah.
What was that like for you personally, but also for the team?
Well, look, I came in on the end of it, and I got a bit of the glory because I got the goal at Wolves. But the reality was that the job had already been done. Kenny Swain and Jock Finiston had scored multitudes of goals that year. With the help, obviously, the strong midfield and the characters we just spoke about, Ray Lewington, Ian Britton, all them sort of guys. And I don't actually know how or why I got involved in the end, because the boys were doing great. But I got involved in the sort of last 5 or 6 games, and then I was playing all right, but couldn't score. And so 3 games before the end, obviously we needed the points. We played Sheffield United at home. It was very much televised. Brian Moore and his mob came into the dressing room before the game and interviewed a few of the boys, myself included. And then I went on and obviously scored the first goal that day, and it was in my opinion, one of my better goals. So it was good to get off the mark. And then obviously the week after, I did it again against Wolves. And then the game you're talking about was the game against Hull, where we celebrated going up and the fans kept running on. So it was a great time.
Don't worry, I am still here. The camera has unfortunately decided to play up on me.
No worries. Let me just say, I don't know if you've gone mute, Keith.
Oh, I ain't gone mute, have I?
No, it's fine. I couldn't hear you. That was all. Sorry, mate. Couldn't hear you. I was trying to see if there's any signs on there.
You was back in the first division. How excited was you to test yourself against the best that the country had to offer?
Mate, that's where you want to be as a footballer. You know, you're a young kid, but you want to play at the big stadiums. You want to play the big clubs. We'd earned the right by going up that season before. So for me, it was just great. I mean, obviously, as I said, we were a group of young guys that had grown up together. So to be there as one was fantastic. We ended up doing okay first season, and obviously it worked that we linked well together. We'd had 2 or 3 seasons sort of to get used to each other in the first team, and as I said, we managed to scrape through that first year quite comfortably.
And it would be on this particular season where you would play more regularly for Chelsea.
Yeah.
This must have given you, massive confidence, knowing that you was being able to be relied on by the manager.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that gives you, an air of confidence. I mean, that Eddie had backed me, and he wanted to play me. Then obviously Ken Shalito got involved after Eddie left for that season, and but we knew Ken from youth team and from growing up in the system from when I was 10 years old. So I'd known Ken since I was 10. He knew me very well. So from that perspective, it was an easy adjustment. Totally different characters, but an easy adjustment. And obviously, as I said, that was an exciting year for us because we were testing ourselves against the best.
The next season, though, would be one of a bit of a struggle for Chelsea. On a personal note, you would be the one to score quite a lot of goals. And on one particular occasion for you, you were able to score a goal in the FA Cup against Liverpool of all teams as well at Stamford Bridge. For this particular period of time, what was this like for you, knowing that Chelsea were going under a bit of a bad spell, but for you personally, this was arguably your best time in a Chelsea shirt?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always been a team player, and for me, if I score and we lose, that's no good. It's if I score and we win, then happy days. But I remember scoring against Spurs at Stamford Bridge. It was 0-0. Ball got hit in the box, and the ball was behind me. Now I did a bit of an overhead kick, and it went in the goal. And I think Hod got 2. He got 2 free kicks, if my memory serves me correctly, and they beat us 3-1. And I'll never forget going into the dressing room after, totally depressed. And Duncan McKenzie said to me, "What's wrong with you?" And I went, "Well, we just got beat by Spurs, mate, 3-1. I can't be happy." He went, well, you did your job. You scored. And I couldn't get my head around that because we got beat. It was, I'd scored, but it meant nothing at the end of the day. It's a stat for me, which is, all well and good. But, it was more about Chelsea Football Club than myself, and especially against Spurs.
Ken Shalito would replace Eddie McCready in the summer of 1977. Excuse me. Was you shocked with the change of management at all?
Yeah, and I mean, no one saw that coming. I mean, Eddie, there's various reasons that we hear that might be right, might be wrong, why Eddie left. I don't think we'll ever know the real truth. But as I said, when Eddie did go, it was a shock because we just had a really, really good season. But the continuity was there because Ken, obviously, as I said, we got used to Ken throughout the years as our youth team manager, and the nucleus of that team, that youth team, and that youth group were now playing in the first team. So, as I said, whilst they were both different characters, Eddie and Ken, there was that continuity that they knew us and we knew them. So it didn't really sort of hurt, but Obviously, I think we're all extremely disappointed, and no disrespect to Ken, that happened with Eddie, because we felt that he could have built something quite good.
Sort of going into the period of Chelsea, where Chelsea would also be struggling in the late 70s. You'd have Danny Blanchflower as well come in to take over a team affairs, but then he would be replaced by Sir Geoff Hurst. What did you make of this change as well, bearing in mind that in a short space of time, Chelsea were going through quite a number of coaches?
Yeah, I mean, that didn't help. I mean, obviously, we that sort of period, I think we had 3 or 4 different managers. If you start with Eddie, then go to Ken, then go to Danny, and then end up with Geoff and Bobby Gould. Danny was a very, very intelligent man, but I don't think his coaching ability was up to speed. I mean, obviously, he was fairly old when he came to us, and it was difficult. Training was difficult. Because Danny liked to get off and play golf and knew at a certain time, so training was always cut short. We then started, I think, I just use me as an example. Started to cheat a little bit in training. It was one of them. You knew Danny was going, so you didn't have to, really work hard. And I think, performances suffer through that. Then when Geoff came, there was no problem with Geoff. I always got on really well with him. I had no issues with Geoff Hurst at all. I had the greatest respect for him. Obviously, at 8 years old, I was watching him get a hat-trick in a World Cup final, and that will probably never happen again in my lifetime. So, obviously, the ultimate respect as a footballer, and I liked him as a person. So I had absolutely no issues with Geoff or Bobby. Bobby Gould the same. But obviously, at that stage, again, the club was in disarray financially, and we were buying players, but not players that maybe were better than what we'd already got. So, yeah, it was again topsy-turvy in the dressing room. But as regards Geoff and Bobby, absolutely no issues. Danny, I think we didn't do ourselves justice under Danny, and I'm talking individually, because I don't think we had the respect for him that maybe we should have done.
A little bit to the summer of 1980. Chelsea was still in the second division, but you would leave the club to join Queen's Park Rangers. How did this move come about for you?
It was horrible. It was a horrible time for me. I'd lost my mum in the Christmas period, which was obviously devastating, of 79. I got married on the 24th of May 1980. And on my honeymoon, I got a call from Jim Smith of Birmingham to say that they'd done a deal. Nobody from Chelsea called me. Not one person from Chelsea called me. But he called me to say, look, we've done a deal with Chelsea. When you come off your honeymoon, you've got to come to Birmingham. So I came back. I was absolutely gutted, because I was a season ticket holder at 5 at Chelsea, and never really understood why that had to happen. Obviously, I was led to believe after. Obviously, it was like a bit like Ray Wilkins earlier in the period, where they had to pay instalments of the state of the ground. So, I was one that they could sell or people wanted. So therefore, they decided that they'd get rid. Obviously, I made it extremely difficult for Jim Smith. I asked for silly money. And then when he actually agreed to most of it, but the last one was basically, I just said, look, I want 20 grand in cash or something really stupid. And he went, nah, you're not the player I want. And he said, deal's off. And secretly I was going, you beauty, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to stay at Chelsea, but I was out of contract, so I didn't. But then they were, they kept saying, we're going to offer you a contract, but no contract came up, and obviously they still needed to sell me. And 2 days before the season was starting, I got a call from Ken Shaletto, ironically, who was Tommy Docherty's assistant at QPR, to say, look, Tom, we know you're out of contract. We really want to sign you. come in tomorrow and meet Jim Gregory, the chairman. So I went training, ironically, Friday morning at Stamford Bridge, pre first game of the season, and I told one of the boys, and they went and told. It got back to Jeff and Bobby that I was going to QPR that morning after training to talk to them, and they said, "Look, don't do anything, don't sign until you speak to us." So anyway, I went to QPR, and I was there as a 22-year-old naive boy. And I asked for a few quid, and I got what they asked for. And I said, I said, look, let me go back and speak to Chelsea and discuss this. They went, no. The deal's on the table today. It's not on the table tomorrow. Now, you and I both know it probably would have been there tomorrow or even Monday. But I signed, and it was heartbreaking. And as I said, even to this day, the directors haven't, or no one's explained to me how or why that happened. Because, as I said, the only point of contact I got first of all was from Jim Smith. They'd done the deal, but as I said, it was a turmoil in my life for many reasons. My mum dying, getting married, and then leaving Chelsea. It was just a real crazy sort of 9 months.
You would return to Chelsea, though, in a very different capacity when Chelsea TV would be sort of in amongst the sort of the viewing for Chelsea fans, and then you would be doing the co-commentary on many, many great moments for Chelsea. What would be the one moment for you that stood out being part of the Chelsea TV family?
Well, first of all, let me say Chelsea TV was magnificent. I loved every second of it. It was just brilliant to be watching my team and commenting on the games. I just loved every minute of it. And initially, as you say, I was doing the first team, up on the East End. Then when it sort of went on to a different era, we ended up doing the away games, which Jason Cundy hosted with, loads of really good ex-players. And we had so much fun doing it. I have to say, there were many goals and times I loved. I remember one. I think it was Frank Leboeuf scored against Leicester in like the 89th minute. He hit one of his 25-yarders into the top corner, and I remember doing the commentary. Then, ironically, I don't think it was with Chelsea TV. I think it was like I got involved with BBC as well, and that was really good. Michael Essien at home against Arsenal when he smashed it from 25 yards, bender, and there was just so many good moments. Keith, I couldn't name them all, but I just loved Chelsea TV, and I just loved them days. And it was so sad when, for some reason, the club decided to cull it as it was in them days.
It's funny you mention it because you're not the first person that has sort of said how great Chelsea TV was when you look at not just the content, but what you guys brought to the table in terms of your commentary, your analysis, and just your views on the club. Do you think Chelsea are missing a trick by not having that there today?
Look, it was done for various reasons, and with due respect for the guys that have took over now, Todd Bowley and the investors and the directors, it was done before they were even the club. Roman decided to do it, and obviously was advised that it wasn't perhaps working. Everyone I spoke to loved it. Like you just said, they felt the content was great. The guys from the Ben and Lee Parker, from the training ground, whoever it was. Then ourselves on a Saturday when we were away, Jason Cundy was then doing the comms, who is an absolute superstar and a lovely man. The good thing about it, Keith, was we were all extremely passionate Chelsea fans. Forget we were Chelsea players. We were the games against Liverpool, for instance, when that lovely man Stevie Gerrard fell over and then Babar scored and things like that. We were just running around the studio, and I think that love and enthusiasm came through to the fans. And as I said, it was just great times. There was so much to look forward to going into them games. And again, it was quite easy because we were actually playing very, very well, and we were very difficult to beat. So if you add the two things together, there was a lot of reasons to be passionate and enjoy the day.
One little thing I was going through my research, this last little bit on Chelsea TV, and then we'll touch on some other things. Is it true that you actually ticked off one of our former managers in Andre Villas-Boas because of your assessment of his treatment over Alex and Nicolas Anelka? It was around about sort of the autumn of 2011 or the winter of 2011. Is it true that allegedly AVB actually tried to speak to somebody to try and ask you not to keep criticising? Am I getting my facts correct, or is that sort of something more wayward and more rumours?
It's even worse than that. He got me the sack. Not that I was employed. I was there on just a ad hoc basis, so I was like freelance. So if Chelsea called me, I went in. And look, I was in many dressing rooms in my life, and we talked about loads of managers earlier that we had respect for and didn't have respect for. And when you're in a dressing room, it helps if you've got respect for the manager, and the manager does the same back. I just felt that was overkill, whether you was a fan of Nicolas Anelka or Alex, and I liked both, to ask them to remove their cars from the first team car park to the youth team car park. I just felt was a little bit pedantic, and I thought it was slightly malicious, and I said that, and basically I got a call at half time. After the show, so before the game, to say, ironically, Villas-Boas was watching the show. I don't know why he was doing that when he's preparing for a game, but he was, and that he'd made a massive complaint because I was undermining him.
Wow.
And it came to pass that 2 weeks later, I was asked not to attend the Chelsea TV studios. I had a meeting with Ron Gourlay, who was the director then, and Ron was great. No problem with him. He just said, "Look, Tom, this is a bit of a storm in a teacup, obviously, and whilst the manager's here, you're not going to be on Chelsea TV." And let me just also add something here, and there's lots of reasons to love Frank Lampard, and Frank found out through his dad, Frank also, that I'd been removed from the Chelsea TV, and Frank wouldn't have had my mobile number, but we were playing Tottenham on a Thursday night, and I'll never forget it. And I got a long text from Frank Lampard to say, "Listen, forget that. You'll be back on, because obviously, the manager won't be here forever. And thank you for." And I love Frank. I always talk Frank up, because for me, he's the best midfield player that the country's had for a long time, and certainly as a Chelsea player. He came. He sent me a lovely text to say, "Listen, don't worry about it. Thanks for your support. You'll be back on Chelsea TV very soon," which was so beautiful. And to this day, it's something that I really cherish. But eventually I did get back on. But you're right, it was Villas-Boas, and he said, whilst I'm the manager, he didn't want me on the channel.
Wow. Fascinating. Interesting to see, obviously, how certain things would conjure up, and obviously with his tenure at the club not lasting long for him. But speaking of something that is hopefully going to change, that because people are getting quite annoyed with it, and that's VAR. Tommy, I've asked obviously previous guests about this on the show. So what's your honest assessment of VAR so far?
I just think it's shambolic. I just, look, offside, if you're drawing lines, and I still don't think they're straight lines. At Wembley, when we played Liverpool, I'm still not sure Jackson was offside but I think it was one of them Liverpool lines which bent a little bit. But I'm not. I can accept that. I can accept a line across that says his toenails offside. I don't like it as an ex-striker. I think there should be benefit of the doubt. There's human error in everything they do. What I don't like is this you score a goal, you have to wait 5 minutes for them to decide if it's a goal or not. You lose that passion. You're frightened to jump up and down and celebrate a goal now. It's got to a stupid level, and I just feel that it's still down to human error, because it goes back to VAR. They say, look at this, and they've got so many decisions wrong that it's still the aim of this was to stop the debate on Monday morning. It was fact, not fiction, that goal should have been disallowed. Offside, as I said, I can accept, because you've got lines and it should tell you something's offside. But they're getting so many decisions wrong from challenges in the box and bits that it can't be right, and it stops the game. It stops that passion of when you score a goal, and there's so much wrong with it that for me it's got to go. I just think it's not been a great addition, and I don't think overall it's been a success.
Speaking of not being a success, we must touch on it. Chelsea of 2024. It's been a bit of a turbulent season, a bit similar to last season, but unfortunately, with the amount of money we've spent and new players coming in, it's partly been same old, same old. What's been your take on the current setup with Pochettino in charge, a young team, dare I say, an inexperienced side in the Premier League, with the way it's going at the moment? What's been your take? Bearing in mind, again, you've been going to the matches more often than not in part of the Chelsea hospitality, so you've seen it front and centre. What's been your take on Chelsea of 2024?
First of all, Keith, I'm so passionate about Chelsea, but this is a season where we just got to be patient. You made the point. We've got a new manager in Maurizio, or now sort of 9-10 months into his job. He's got a group of guys, most of them under the age of 22, who were introduced to themselves last June/July and said, right, now you've got to be a team. It's not that simple. We've been spoilt. We've had some fantastic players and squads over the years, but most of them born out of experience as well. When you look, even the likes of Michael Ballack, go back and as far as Gianfranco Zola, we haven't got any of them players that can lead players into battle. Obviously, we've got Thiago Silva, but he's 40 this year, so he's coming to the end of his contract and his tether. He's been fantastic for us. But looking at the squad now, we've got no real leaders. So first thing I'll say is, listen, I'm a Chelsea fan. So, I've seen some horrible days. I've seen some magnificent days. I was in Moscow. That was horrible. Went to Munich. That was brilliant. Didn't go to Porto, but that was brilliant. So, win, lose or draw, I'm Chelsea through and through. And I understand the hurt of supporters at the moment. But I think that Todd Bowley and his group have got plans now, 2 or 3 years down the line, and I think it's going to take that long, because for this group to knit together and buy some maybe more experienced guys that can help, it's going to take time. And I think that the boys we've recruited are now starting to show more. I use Mudryk as an example. I think, 4 or 5 months ago, he looked lost. But game by game, he's showing more and more. He's just coming and just edging away. So I think, to use him as an example, next year I can really see him hitting the ground running. Add that to injuries. Reece, obviously, club captain, not being fit, hasn't helped. Ben Chilwell, the other side, again, only just coming back from fairly long-term injury.
Yeah.
We've signed players that we haven't seen. Lavia played for 25 minutes and now he's out for the season.
Yeah.
So, it's been an upside down. To say I don't care is probably the wrong terminology. I do care, but I'm a Chelsea fan, and I'm gonna put up with this. I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna be patient with Maurizio. I'm gonna be patient with Jesus Perez's assistant. I'll appreciate what Todd Bowley's trying to achieve, and I think we should give them time to see how this all transpires 2 or 3 years down the line. Because as I said, I think I don't think we're going to be 11th next year. I think we'll be higher. But I think looking at the Champions League positions, and it's going to take a good another season for us to be up there challenging at that level on a regular basis.
Well, Pochettino's certainly got a job on his hands, that's for sure. Even with next season on the horizon, depending on what players arrive and what players do leave. But that's obviously a conversation for another time. We'll probably have that in the summer. Finally,
One thing also,
Tommy.
Keith, as well, though, I get
go on.
there's a lot of negativity around at the moment, and I understand it. But as I said, we've been spoiled, and we just have to take a pause and take a deep breath and support the boys. I can't have players picking the ball up on the edge of the box and being booed. That's not Chelsea fans. That's not what we do. We've got more class than that, and I think that was wrong a few weeks ago. And hopefully we can put that wrong right by supporting the boys in this next 2 months. But I've heard Maurizio's under pressure. Who's going to come in and do a better job at the moment? There's no great manager out there who's going to put this right. These boys are learning their trade under us on a week in, week out basis. And as I said, some are improving for it, some are stagnating, and some probably aren't doing as well as we'd hope they would. But as I said, let's just support the boys. Let's support Maurizio. And if it's the same situation next year, which I can see it being fairly similar, depending on recruitment and who we lose in the summer. But I think patience is the key. No knee-jerk reactions. Get behind the board. Get behind the manager. Get behind the boys that are playing on a Saturday afternoon. And look, it's been we say it's an average year. We've been in one cup final. We're in a cup semi-final.
That's true.
And that's a bad year for Chelsea. All right, I know our league position is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but hopefully in the next few weeks that'll improve as well. So, and we got a chance of being in 2 cup finals if we can beat Man City. So, if that's a bad year, then so be it.
I can't say fairer than that, to be honest. Yes, as you've rightfully put, going into 2 cup finals, is it really a bad season? On the face of it, we should see.
Well, we're not in the second cup final yet, Keith.
Not yet. No, not yet. But
let's hope. That's wishful thinking, but let's hope we can get there.
You never know. Last question from me, Tommy. How do you look back on your time at Chelsea?
Well, I don't look back. I'm still doing it now. I'm doing the hospitality, and I love it. I'm turning up to games, and it's I'm shaking hands with Chelsea people, and I love every second of that. But no, Chelsea's my love, mate. It's my passion. It's what I do. All my family are Chelsea supporters, and they will be forever. So from that perspective, mate, I'm still living the dream.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, hopefully we'll hopefully see you back at the bridge quite soon. And yeah, enjoy hopefully the rest of the season with Chelsea getting a little bit of pride back in themselves.
Well, listen, mate, let's just keep the blue flag flying now. Whatever happens from now to the end of the season, and let's end on a positive note if we can. Give them all the support they need, and let's see where we kick off next year.
Couldn't agree more. Tommy, thank you.
Cheers, Keith. Stay well.
Tommy Langley, and what opportunism as well.
is.
Stood on his way. And that's a ball in for Langley. And Langley is going to make it two. The ball fell for him, and in the end, it was just a simple tap over the line with Leathern still way.
Created a goal for Langley. 1-3.
Wicks with the header. Well, that was a marvellous goal. The joy there of the young man and of the many.
He's onside, Langley. But he could only just have been onside. Goal number 5. Tommy Langley to score. 3 goals in the last 10 minutes.
Right through patching. Now Wilkins. Looking for Langley, and he's got it. And he scored. That goal against Wolves. Triumph, of course, for Tommy Langley.